producing and exporting primary commodities to markets of the North, and not focusing enough on Africa's industrial development, and not focusing enough on the establishment of value chains across the African continent to ensure that we diversify our continent over time. This is why the primary objective of this agreement is to boost intra-Africa trade from the current 18% where it is now to double figures in less than 15 years. That is where we want to take the African continent. I am sure my friend Hussein will talk more about industrial development on the continent, but that is one of the pillars on which we are building this free trade area. It is on industrial development and the need for establishment of regional value chains across the African continent so that we are less reliant on the export of primary commodities and less reliant on a single supply chain that will take us through global trade markets around the world. And this is a point that I've been making since I was elected by the 33rd session of the Assembly of Heads of States, where we implement this agreement. If we do not bring with us young Africans, if we do not bring with us women in trade, it shall not succeed. This is something I have said from day one. If this agreement is perceived to benefit only the big multinational corporations on the African continent, to benefit only MTN, Zenith Bank, and these are very important multinational corporations, African multinational corporations. They're very important. They play a very critical role in job creation in Africa, in innovation. We need them. However, if we don't pay enough attention to how young Africans can be part of implementation of this agreement and how women in trade can be part of implementation of this agreement, we shall be making the same mistakes that were made in other parts of the world, where in implementation of the trade agreements and in the rollout of globalization in general, these very important segments of society were left behind. And the result is that there was a backlash against trade agreements, a backlash against globalization, because in these countries, very, very important segments of society were left behind. Second, in the same category, if this agreement will benefit only the relatively industrialized countries on the African continent, Morocco, Egypt, South Africa, Kenya, if it benefits only countries that are relatively already industrialized, once again, it shall not succeed. So we will have to take affirmative, concrete steps to make sure that women, young Africans are part of implementation of this agreement. We know, for example, that over 70% of Africa's GDP comes from the small and medium enterprise and informal sector. That is largely driven by women. We know that young Africans, the average African is below the age of 25, which is what we call the African dividend. We have an opportunity because of the young population on the African continent. We have an opportunity to leverage on this youth dividend and to make sure that they become part of Africa's economic success story. It's absolutely critical. And these are not things that will happen by accident. Involvement of women in the AfCFTA implementation and young Africans in the implementation of the AfCFTA, it's not going to happen by accident. It's not going to happen by chance. We will have to work together to make sure that in concrete steps, we have programs and platforms that includes young Africans and women. I certainly don't have all the answers. I can tell you that much. We will have to find the answers together. as these very, very important segments of society, young Africans and women, we will have to find the answers for how we spread the benefits of this agreement. That is a collective exercise that we will have to undertake together, the Secretariat, DTI, and yourselves as young people and women formations. We will establish the necessary platforms to initiate this dialogue so that it is an ongoing dialogue, it is a structured dialogue, a dialogue that will have an action plan so that we are not just talking and recognizing through rhetoric, recognizing shortcomings of the past, that we actually do something concrete, we do something tangible and something meaningful that will ensure that we spread the benefits of inclusivity of this AfCFTA, which all of us agree is a unique opportunity in the history of the African continent. Similarly, we will have to take concrete steps to make sure that countries that today may not have a high degree of productive capacity, a high degree of industrial development, we will have to take affirmative, concrete action to ensure that as we implement Africa's third industrial decade and all our other industrial development programs, we're going to have to make sure that we bring together countries that are less industrialized. It's going to be difficult, it's going to take a long time, but I believe that it is possible. So let me leave you with this positive observation by the World Bank, which recently released a report. The World Bank predicts that by the year 2035, where we implement this agreement effectively, we have an opportunity to lift 100 million Africans out of poverty, 70 million Africans out of extreme poverty, 30 million Africans out of moderate poverty. And in addition to that, we have an opportunity to make a direct impact on gender inequality on the African continent. We, through the AfCFTA, have an opportunity by lifting 100 million people out of poverty, extreme and moderate poverty. We have an opportunity to, at the same time, to close the salary, the gender salary gap on the African continent and to bring women much closer to the fore in terms of Africa's economic prosperity. And we are, as I said earlier, we are going to take concrete steps to address some of these deficits. We are working very closely with our partner, the UNDP, whom, as we all know, the UNDP has expertise on issues of development, particularly for youth and women. We launched last year a joint report with UNDP on the AfCFTA and women, young people in trade. So we are going to continue that work, and we're going to make sure that there are concrete steps that are taken to address and to make sure that young Africans and women are at the core of implementation of this agreement. It's going to be very difficult work. It's going to take a very, very long time, but we have to do it. And this, for me, this AfCFTA is a start. The AfCFTA gives us an opportunity, a very unique opportunity, to start something that we have been talking about for many, many years, to make sure that we advance our integration objectives, which we have been talking about for many, many years. This is now the opportunity for us as Africans to take concrete actions so that those on whose shoulders we stand, Kwame Nkrumah, Augustino Neto, Malumu Nyerere, many, many other liberation struggle heroes of our continent, whose shoulders on which we stand, so that we can bring their dream of an integrated Africa, we bring it to reality, and that it happens in our lifetime. It's going to be difficult, it's going to take a long time, but we have to do it. I thank you very much, my fellow Africans, for the opportunity, and I look forward to further collaboration with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And just before you go, I know you need to head out and go for you and pick your flight, but I just want to ask you one question or two so that then you can be able to respond to it. You say the treaty itself was established in 2018, and then you say that there are numbers also of nations that have been able to ratify. Yet, this is a conversation that we are having within the capital cities. We are having it in Nairobi, we are having it in Kigali, we are having it in Addis Ababa. What about the community deep down in the African villages? How are they going to ensure that eventually that villager who is doing trade can be able to know about this treaty? Because it's projected to be the biggest area in the entire world when it comes to the perspective of doing business. But yet, even within the nation itself, the ease of doing business itself is one of the nightmares that we're dealing with in Africa. How is it going to be possible so that then we break down the barriers? And just as you wind it down on the matter of youth and women, one of the things that is really going to be pegged on this is the movement of goods and services vis-a-vis movement of people. Yet we still have Africa that is segmented, that we cannot be able to move within the boundaries. How do we go about all this? It seems to be quite technical. How do we go about it in a simplified way?
I thought I was going to escape the difficult questions and leave them for my brother Hussein, but you got me there. You've asked a number of questions, 4 or 5 questions. The first, I would say, the agreement does not address movement of persons. It does not, because that is a separate area of law. This agreement is governed by trade law. Movement of persons is immigration law, and there is, in fact, a protocol on movement of persons that is being ratified under the African Union. So of course, there are linkages, I recognize that, but due to the sensitivity of the issue of movement of persons, had we linked movement of persons to the trade agreement, we would not have been able to get the agreement to be ratified. So because there are countries who have a great deal of sensitivity on movement of persons, that is the reality. That is why that process of ratifying that instrument is moving much, much slower. However, what we have done in the context of the AfCFTA, we have what we call movement of business persons. And we have identified different categories of business peoples that will be allowed to move across the African continent on the basis of an AfCFTA business visa. This is something that will probably, by the end of the year, we will be in a position to roll out as an outcome of the AfCFTA, so that we give meaning, at least from a business sense, we give meaning to movement of people, at least from a business sense. It's very important that the movement of business persons is facilitated so that business can happen and trade can happen on the African continent. So this is the reality of where we are. We are not part of a movement of business persons. We are not part of the movement of business of natural people in the context of the protocol on movement of persons. That is a different legal instrument. Regarding how we intend to get Africans on the ground to be part of this agreement, I heard a very, very encouraging anecdote that in East Africa, there are farmers of cut flower who use digital enabled platforms on their smartphones to access the cut flower market in Europe. So here you have somebody probably in a village or in a small town who uses a smartphone to access global markets of cut flower. This is a very, very encouraging anecdote because it tells me that through digital platforms and through digital means, we now have an opportunity to create interconnectivity amongst small, medium enterprises, amongst young people, under the umbrella of the AfCFTA and under the umbrella of trading under the AfCFTA. It means that we now, using these digital enabled platforms, we now have an opportunity to have an interconnected business and trade environment much, much quicker than before the innovation of these digital enabled platforms. We have already launched on the 1st of January 2021. We have already launched an app which is available on our website. Of course, we have a whole lot more work to do to publicize about this app and to make Africans aware of this app. But we have deployed digital enabled platforms for connectivity of small, medium enterprises, so that if you want to do business, you are in Malawi, you want to do business with a small, medium enterprise in Accra, we have established a platform for you to be able to do that. These things will take time. Fully, I recognize that. It will take time before some of these technologies are fully appreciated by Africans all over the African continent. But you've hit the nail on the head when you suggest that if we don't get Africans on the ground to be part of implementation of this agreement, its success is going to be very, very limited. And we want this to not just be a trade agreement on paper, a trade agreement that benefits the big corporations. We want ordinary Africans to be part of this agreement and part of its implementation, so that the integration, the vision of integration that we talk about doesn't just end there as a vision, that it actually is translated into reality for Africans across the board. Let me give you another example of how we intend to make sure that small, medium enterprises benefit from this agreement. We have launched, along with Afreximbank, a Pan-African payments and settlement platform, which will enable you as a small, medium enterprise to transact from Kenya with somebody in South Africa. You will transact in the Kenyan shilling. The person will receive South African rands. You will no longer have to convert your currency into the dollar before you can actually transact with your counterparty. So we've created this this platform to ease the cost of doing business on the African continent, to make sure that there is efficiency of the cost, there is efficiency of trade, there's affordability. Yeah. I think these apps, these digital enabled platforms, are very, very important for the purpose that you pointed to, which is to make sure that the AfCFTA reaches all Africans across the length and breadth of this great continent of ours. But I want to emphasize, all of these things are not going to happen overnight. We will have to work together very, very hard to make sure that there is awareness, to make sure that there is publicity, and where, of course, there are shortcomings, to point out that there are shortcomings in these specific areas. We will have challenges, that is for sure. It took the Europeans 71 years to be where they are today. 71 years for Europe to reach the depth of market integration that they have today. So integration of markets, integration of the continent is not an event. It's a process. We've got to start somewhere, but I'm very happy that all of us as Africans, we started somewhere on the 1st of January, 2021.
As we embark on the journey of doing this, thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your time. And also thank you for your deliberation as well. Well received indeed. And this is the juncture when, if you're in the room, then we shift the spaces and so that somebody walks you to the door, and you would be ensure that somebody hands you a glass of water as you walk out. But then as you walk out, then we also get to reconstitute the panel of discussion comprising of men and ladies of integrity, ladies who can speak about matters trade and invest within Africa. Ladies who are going to ensure that this conversation continues as you go. Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa. Mheshimiwa in Kenya is the other version for His Excellency. So thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, let's shift gears to this matter. We are bringing in people who have done business. We're bringing people who know what it takes to deal with people in business, but we're also dealing with people who have the capability to develop policies and frameworks within which to do business. Now we are looking within the countries, but we are also looking without that constitute the entire African nations. Look at any country that you can think about of. Imagine you as an individual who is attending this forum, you can be able to do trade in that country. Starting as of is Mrs. Ngozi Oyewole, who is an CEO, also MD for Noxi Limited. She knows so much about the common market and customs union experience, more specifically, women and business perspectives. Ngozi, as you pitch your tent, one of the things that I need to talk about.
Can you allow the Director of Trade and Industry at the African Union to give his remark before the panelists? Oh. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Director?
Dr. Hussein Hassan.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Dr. Hussein, yes.
Yes. His Excellency, Dr. Wamkila Mini, Secretary General of African Continental Free Trade Area. Are you hear me? Are you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Yes, Dr. Hussein, we can hear you.
African youth and women in trade, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great an honor to be with you on this important youth-led occasion that aims at the domestication of the African Continental Free Trade Area by youth and women. This came in exactly 1 month from the starting trade on basis of the AfCFTA. For sure that it's come very in high time and timely. I appreciate the organizers, the Nile Youth Development Action, NIDA, and the EU Youth Volunteer who stopped forward to invite all of us. Despite the COVID-19 pandemic, African countries opened their remarks on the 1st January under Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, and the duty-free trading of goods and services across border is now underway. The agreement has a potential of lifting up to 30 million Africans out of extreme poverty. To market is estimated to be as large as 1.3 billion across Africa, with a combined gross domestic products GDP of 3.4 trillion US dollar. It is also expected to boost intra-Africa trade, promote industrialization, create job, improve competitiveness of the African industries on the global stage. I would like to really have a more stress about industrialization as a backbone and the main factor for sustainability of success of the AfCFTA. Without industrialization, we cannot ensure the sustainability and success of the AfCFTA. Industrialization means extremely increase the job opportunity for our youth and women. Industrialization means that we have to diversify. As you are aware, the main challenges of increasing the volume of trade in intra-Africa trade, it is that the similarity of our products. How can we really make a trade with each other while we are producing the same items or same commodities? We have to really diversify to be able to that can only done by supporting industrialization. And the approach of the value chain across the continent is the optimal way to ensure the integration and to have a really coherent integration and cooperation among African countries, and also to really link up the economy of Africa with the global economy. This is really a humble comment on what His Excellency Dr. Wamkila has indicated on the issue of the value chain as a really very important approach to make really AfCFTA work more efficiently and to achieve the integration on the ground. The agreement will also empower women and youth by improving their access to trade opportunities, particularly in promoting the SMEs for Africa. As you are aware, that the Trade and Industry Department at the African Union Commission has successfully recreated the continental strategy of the small and medium enterprise development as a continental strategy adopted by the Minister of Industry, Trade, Mining in the STCs, as well as has been adopted by his heads of states as a continental strategy and legal framework to develop our economy by mainly supporting youth and women to really ensure decent job for them and to really ensure struggling really efficiently against the poverty and hunger. The African Union Commission is working for adoption, working for spreading or sensitization and domestication of this important strategy of the SMEs. Opportunities enrich the AfCFTA for youth and women are small and medium enterprise. As in Africa, they account for around 90% of the region's business. These business usually struggle to penetrate more advanced over areas markets, but are well positioned to tap into regional export destinations and can use regional markets as stepping stones for expanding into overseas market at a later point. In this regard, I would like to stress on the roles of the institutions for supporting and developing SMEs. Most of our people who are working in SMEs, they have a really low capacity, lack of fund, lack of experience about the marketing, lack experience or lack capacity. I don't want to say lack experience, lack capacity for market access, standard, quality, minimize the cost, competitiveness, integration among the small producers. All of this really issue can be really only maintained efficiently by big institutions given mandate and power and capacity and resources by member states to work at national and regional level to really manage and links up the production lines across borders. And it's really a good way to really transform the informal sector into the formal sector. Another way in which small and medium size enterprise can benefit from the AfCFTA through larger regional value chain before exporting cars overseas. For example, large automobile manufacturing, South Africa imports, including leather for seats from Botswana and fabric from Lesotho under professional South Africa custom union trading regime. This is the example for really kind of integration or regional value chain. But really the manufacturing of cars, it really showing really very good progress in a number of areas across the continent. In East Africa, as example, we find Kenya and Ethiopia. In West Africa, we find very good progress made by Ghana and Nigeria. In the north, we'll find Egypt, Morocco, and other North African countries really moving fast for really automotive car and the transport means and manufacturing of transportation. This is a really very good and rich field to have a really kind of value chain across at the continental level. We are here as the African Union Commission. We had a really one session in the Africa Industrialization Day about automotive car in Africa and how can really establish a continental body to really support the value chain of car across the continent. We are working on that in the industry divisions that we are very soon are going to establish this important platform for one of the most important or have a high potential to grow up rapidly, the industrialization of cars and the automotive. By reducing the tariff of AfCFTA, make it more affordable for women in informal trade to operate through formal channels, which offer more protection and provides a simplified clearing procedure, alongside reduced important duties that provide particular help to small-scale traders. Women and youth in trade need to look into opportunities under non-tariff barriers where the private sector can directly report trade obstacles on online portal mechanism. At this point, I want to really inform our important meeting that the youth and the women is one of the main targeted of the benefit of the all strategy and policy really adopted by the African Union Commission and heads of states. We really addressed the issue of women and youth in all continental economic and social strategy. You will find really a key part of all of these strategies indicated to the role of youth and women and how they can benefit. I can give you an example. For Accelerated Industrial Development Action Plan, you will find youth and women. If you look at the African Mining Vision, you will find the youth and women roles. If you look at the BIDA, if you look at the SMEs, all of those really continental strategy work in many areas, not only SMEs, and in agriculture also, in mining. The issue of women and youth as a common factor and in the core of really any development, because they are the main pillars, among the most important main pillars of supporting and successful any strategy. And people who are targeted to benefit. And those are the majority of our population that we need to really develop and to gain the fruit of our work. Finally, Africa Trade Observatory, ATO system, strengthening trade information across the continent and monitoring, equipping national government staff, training policymakers, and creating online database tool for policymakers to negotiate, monitor tariff removal. This is really Africa Trade Observatory. It's come to really reduce the gap of availability of the database. One of the most really weakness points that the data and information of trade, not only in trade, in many areas, is not really have the adequate harmonization among African member states, and really in many cases there is non-availability of information and data, which is really essential for the policy maker and the business people. So the Trade Observatory is one of its main really mandate and task to really avail a quality information and the statistics for business, for policy makers. This is really a very heavy duty because harmonizing among 55 countries and really standardize the data and information, it is not something easy. They need really to have a really adequate resources to success in their important tasks. I therefore urge you,
Thank you.
I urge the African youth and women in trade to also adopt into e-commerce the new language of the trade, and spreading every day. It's achieved a big leaps to deal with these really important tools for trade. And if we really, as a matter of fact, we need to really, as we guide the youth and women to utilize this one, we also call member states to really spread the infrastructure of availability of e-commerce to be really, really one of the regular tool of trade. We cannot really trade through the e-commerce, while we still have a low, really, internet number of utilized across the continent. We need to really to spread the internet. We need to have the infrastructure, the necessary condition for the e-commerce to be broadly increase the number of people who are utilizing this. Having said that, let's work together for Africa. We want integrated by cross borders trading. So I thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hussein Hassan. That has been the Acting Director, Departmental of Trade and Industry, African Union Commission. That is dealing with continental recovery strategies, especially for the SMEs positioning of the youth and women in Africa. And that is where we're going to peg in our conversation, starting with Ngozi Oyewole. When we talk about women in business, when we talk about your experience, do you think that women are ready to ensure that business is done within cross-border Africa?
Well, thank you very much, Josiah, and thank you for the opportunity to be in this conversation today. I need not say my name again, but I am a office furniture manufacturer, and they're very well registered with the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. And so for us, for me as a woman, I'm speaking for other women. I know I have about 3-4 minutes because I think Dr. Hussein really took much of time, but he said a lot that is very, very, very much to our advantage, you know, and looking at it as a common market.
Absolutely.
It's very interesting. Yes, for a manufacturer or for the women, it's a good thing. It's good news because I know in the past, I think in 2019, I had an experience. I was at the expo in Botswana, and I liked what I saw, and I wanted to set up a branch of Noxy Limited in Botswana, and it was totally difficult. Everything that I tried made it so impossible. The immigration laws, it was totally impossible, and so I sort of abandoned it. And then I had another experience sometime in South Africa with the customs law. And I was trying to, bring out something again, another, goods. And I realized that bringing things from China made life much easier because the tariff and all the roadblock made it so impossible. So it's very welcoming and very heartwarming to know that with AfCFTA in place and all Dr. Hussein has said this morning, it's very interesting because now it's going to be much cheaper. The barriers that we suffer, the inability to reach out, not because our products within Africa is not of quality, but the challenge of getting there, bringing it back, and then, interacting with business. Now, yes, it's interesting. We can now enjoy standardization of the goods, like His Excellency Mene said. He said, the visa policy for that will be in place. Things will be much easier. Interestingly, so it's very heartwarming. And as a woman in business, I am very, very, very excited to know that this has happened, because in the past, it hasn't been an easy ride in this sector. Thank you.
Interesting. That is a very unique angle and quite an interesting way of looking at it from the women perspective. I'm bringing in somebody who is very passionate about youth, Anne Rose, who is a communication specialist and executive director of Uzalendo Africa Initiative. She often deals with gender policies in trade and microfinance. But on this end, Anne, do you think the youth have a leeway to access this, or is this something that sounds nice, but the youth have no way of doing this totally? If from the experience of what Ngozi is saying, as women of Africa, the tariffs and everything else, what about the youth? Are they going to partake in this? Or is this just a hopeful wish, beautiful piece of paper that has been written and captured, expressing desires that we have? Anne Rose. Is Anne Rose here?
She was here a while ago, but I think she's dropped off. Maybe connectivity challenges.
Yes.
Maybe you
so then if when Anne comes back, then we'll be able to get into the matter of the youth. But I want to bring on board Prudence Sebaizi. You said that you're live from Nairobi right now, but you're the head of CFTA unit and the African Union Commission. It talks about domesticating of the AfCFTA to unleash Africa's potential, productive capabilities, and structural transformation. When we talk about domestication, that is the elephant in the room. Where are we and how are we going to go through this?
All right, thank you very much, moderator. Let me start by greeting everyone on the call. Good afternoon and good morning, depending on where you are. And also thank you for having me and giving me this opportunity to talk about domestication of the AfCFTA, especially in this context where we are talking about the role of women and youth in the implementation of the AfCFTA. First of all, to emphasize that AfCFTA has reached a point where each and everyone has to assess his or her role in moving forward this agenda. And when we talk about domestication, lawyers will look at it from the legal perspective and look at the issues of mainstreaming the international agreement to the national legislation. But in this context, I would like to emphasize more on the role that youth and women are going to play in making sure that the AfCFTA is fully implemented on the continent. And I will base my argument on the statement made by His Excellency Wamkele Mene at the opening, when he emphasized the gain that women are expected to get in the AfCFTA implementation, given the fact that the AfCFTA is not only going to bridge the salary gap between men and women, but it is also going to benefit women in the sense that they are the most involved in intra-African trade, especially in cross-border trade. So from industrialization perspective, let me say that women are participating in a number of activities that are going to benefit the AfCFTA. You look at it, women are, of course, the most employed in services such as insurance, recreational services, real estate, trade and financial services, of course, textile and apparel industry, which are the main focus for the AfCFTA on the continent. And once those sectors are boosted by the the market of the AfCFTA, then the participation of women continent-wide is going to increase, and the gains are also going to increase. Mr. Hussein has emphasized on the role of small and medium enterprises in the implementation of the AfCFTA. I believe that most SMEs on the continent are owned by either women or youth. So in that case, in that context, the small and medium enterprises are going to benefit not only from the market itself, but also from the development of continental and regional value chains that will be produced by the AfCFTA market. So SMEs are going to be easily linked to the big companies that will be attracted by the AfCFTA market. And then whatever you will be producing on the continent is going to find either its way in the continental value chain or its market directly to the continent. Let me emphasize this point that the level of intra-African trade we have today is only 18%. It means that the remaining 82% is traded between Africa and the rest of the world. And we can look at it as an opportunity. It's a market share that our SMEs on the continent have to make sure that they embrace. Because the reason why we're importing products from outside the continent is because we do not have them on the continent. Africans have the purchasing power, but they do not have the right products to consume. So it's a challenge to the SMEs to ensure that they produce for that market share.
Yeah.
Let me end my intervention on the youth side, because this is very important. We have seen that we are moving towards industrializing the continent, and you know that we are now at the fourth industrial revolution. So our youth has not only to think that industrialization does not belong to them. It's actually their time. Because fourth industrial revolution, today, when you look at what we need, of course, we need to change our mindset, because if you are a young person, you don't need more resources. You just need to have your computer and you have your brain. And then you come up with innovative ideas, because in this wide market, anything that you can do will prosper. So let me leave it here because of limited time, but when I'm given opportunity, we expand more on how women and the youth can reap the benefits of the AfCFTA market.
Yes, actually, I'll come back to you on pegging on that, and especially the matter of domestication. When you mentioned that we do have the capability, the purchasing power we do have, yet we do not produce a lot. And I like the way you say it, we are standing at 18%. One of the things or the challenges that we do have in domestication is the tariffs that we have within intra and inter. And that is what we look at when we come back to you. But before we do that, I did introduce her later, and then she was away. Anne Rose, who is a communication and specialist executive from and director of Zalendo Africa. We can to be able to do this.
Adiema, could you please repeat the question, because I didn't quite hear it? I am really having poor connectivity.
We seem to have lost the moderator. Maybe
we lost the moderator. What was the question?
You can anticipate the question and
Is John on the call? Is John on the call? Because I from my end, I didn't hear the question. I am having really bad connectivity but I had something on what we can do to domesticate the AfCFTA. So I don't know exactly what the question was, but nevertheless, I can always make a submission anyway, if I am allowed. So how can we domesticate AfCFTA to include young women and youth in Africa? And for me, I would like to talk about the fourth industrial revolution, because this is where I feel like we have the power as youth. And then especially the digital economy and the e-commerce, I feel like in fact, there's this research that was done that says by 2050, African youth population is projected to reach 460 people. This is actually 6 times bigger than that of Europe. And how prepared are we to actually be ready when that time comes? So in terms of how do we make this work, I feel like young people in Africa have a very big opportunity to actually capitalize on the digital economy and the e-commerce and trading systems online. But again, to do that, I would like also to appreciate His Excellency and also Dr. Hassan, who started by saying implementing all this will also we will also have challenges implementing this, because I feel like as much as young people are very digitalized, we're still struggling with issues of the digital divide. We also still have countries that are not fully connected, and this is actually one of the hindrances to young people doing businesses. And also the issue of skill development, there's the issue of education versus the issue of skill development, because you can have education but you do not have ICT related education. How as Africans can we capitalize on these by looking at this? It looks like a challenge, but it's an opportunity presented to us to develop the skills of young Africans to be able to compete globally, but also do intra-trade within the AfCFTA. And I'm looking also at the issue of information. How many people know the existence of the AfCFTA? How can we mainstream this conversation to the grassroots level? I am rooting definitely for the grassroots level, because this is where the real youth bulge is. For young people who actually are already aware and have the skills, they constitute quite a small number compared to those at the grassroots level. How can we mainstream our interventions, both as state actors and non-state actors, to see that we reach these young people? I know His Excellency said that this is going to be a long-term process, but we will head there. But also, I'm also looking at access to finance. How can government and member states set aside kitty to actually implement this? As much as a young person will need a computer and all this, is the environment that young people are working favorable? What are the legislations saying around the whole ICT related trade, around the whole issue of e-commerce? What about the taxes and levies that we are being charged? In different countries, there are different legislation, despite the fact that member states have actually ratified this. For example, here in Kenya, we have a whole issue of paying of the digital economy paying tax. So if we put all those factors in consideration, then we'll be able to come up with a solution. But also the other thing is prioritizing education and providing information that is trade related on access to market and trading opportunity, because I may have skills as a young person, or I may be techie savvy, but I don't know where existing opportunities are, where the labor market is. So I'm looking at how best we can actually provide more information on that. And then, of course, to drive the e-commerce agenda and the digital economy, youth need to be equipped with skills in prepared and readiness of the AfCFTA. Corona hit us and actually expose the inequalities that we have and disparities, even when you talk about the digital divide. And unfortunately, in this one, it is the women and the younger women who are actually more affected when you talk about the number of young women and women actually accessing the internet and being able to operate or to trade their system. I would like to leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Back in time. I had power uptake, power went down, and now I'm back just in time. And I believe you've done a splendid job. So then we're going to Celestine. Celestine is the founder of Glaxtech e-learning, something that is very critical right now. That learning has taken the form of internet, Zoom, and all these matters that are digital. In fact, a good number of nations are even contemplating if the entire educational system should go online. When it comes to matters doing business and they expands Africa at large, how do we go about it when it comes to matters e-services?
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk about my subject matter area, which is e-learning. When it comes to e-learning, I think the pandemic made everybody aware why it's very relevant for us as Africans to embrace that, and also to embrace tools or platforms that can encourage the type of environments that we are in. Platforms that can embrace e-learning from an offline, online context point of view, whereby you can be able to download a platform and content that you're supposed to learn, and also be able to access that information or that material when you're offline because of the poor connectivity issues that we experience from different regions in Africa. In Kenya, where even we look like we are very connected when it comes to the digital space, we always have problems also of challenges in bandwidth and connectivity. It's not everywhere or every time that you can have a learning platform where we are looking at each other like this. So we have to put into consideration a bandwidth that can also be accessed when participants, either the youth or the traders that you want to teach on a certain concept, can access the same information when they are not online. So for us, the pandemic made it very relevant to actually have people start looking at probably a blended methodology, because we all know that we are not used to considering learning when we are not seeing a person from a physical point of view, but we consider if we are learning online, there has to be an element where we need to meet somebody so that our doubts or our ideas can be clarified. So the e-learning space, when it comes to post-pandemic, as we know it, it's become very crucial, especially also in enabling, whether it's the youth, whether it's the women, to actually look at areas where they can work remotely or do trade remotely, to really make use of the internet and the tools that are available there. And how else can you do it? Through an e-learning platform, to educate and to inform yourself more. What is out there? What can I leverage on? What is within my hands? And as Anne said, we currently right now have a digital tax that will also affect probably people who are selling ebooks online. And that is something that if other nations or other countries that are in this AfCFTA have embraced, have to consider that also for the betterment probably of the youth and of the women who want to learn more, because we realize that women have been most affected when it comes to this pandemic. Why? Because they've been technologically challenged for the longest time. And they are the ones who have had to probably lose their source of income, whether if it's in trade or work, because they cannot be able to adapt very quickly to remote work. So for every 3 jobs that have been lost during the pandemic, we have realized, like in Africa, 2 of those jobs have women-owned jobs. So women have really lost a source of income, and because also of multitasking and balancing between the being a homemaker and being also a breadwinner or being a trader, it's become very difficult for them to understand what digital tools or how can they leverage on digital without having access to e-learning platforms. So e-learning is probably something that has to be looked at very, very seriously as a skill as a platform for upskilling yourself for the future and upskilling yourself for the 4th industrial revolution, be it you're a youth or you're a mother. So it's high time that we all started taking this upskilling and constantly learning, upgrading your skills, probably at a quarterly level, or at every half year. You tell yourself, I want to earn this skill, and you go online and you learn it. That way, it will enable us as Africans understand how to leverage this new opportunity that's coming up, and also it will interconnect us because of the knowledge and the tools that we can access from area to area, be it fintech, be it e-commerce, be it information that we'll be sharing, and even just connecting with each other as communities. I hope the information that I've given is a bit relevant when it comes to e-commerce. I've just made it like very general for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Celestine. When we come back, then we'd want to see how then technology can be used as one of the things that accelerate trade within the various African countries, so that then the Africans can embrace technology. But the quiet man in the room has been none other than Carl. Carl, I know you thought like we almost even forgot you, but I can guarantee you that you're not forgotten at all. And now we come back to you and say, so Carl, Dr. Carl Oshodi, when you took CEO, the Chief Executive Director, African Industrialization Group. So when you talk about the aspect of the informal sector vis-a-vis the SMEs development, how do we marry it with this animal that we hope to give birth to? Carl, are you there? Carl, are you there? Your volume. Carl? Dr. Carl, if you can hear me, then we cannot hear your volume at all. So either you increase your volume, because we can't hear your volume. We can't hear what you're saying totally. Or is it only from my end?
We can't hear him.
Okay, Carl is saying something about his gadget or the phone, but I do not hear what he is saying. Okay, Dr. Carl, we're coming back to you after 1 minute. That is the signal you're giving me. So get hold of the gadgets and make sure the volume is working. When it is, then let me know. Mrs. Ngozi, the
Yes,
African woman you say is raring to go. And she's ready to do business. She is even ready to transcend the borders. Are the systems within and without supporting the African woman to do business?
Now, you know, listening through to something that Celestine said, and I think Anne Rose also pointed that the challenges that women face. It's brilliant. AfCFTA is a brilliant idea. Everything that went on in their minds to set it up is fantastic. But now there are barriers. And those barriers, women are the ones that actually suffer. Be it cultural barriers, be it somebody looking down, oh, it's a woman, how do we do business? So you have trust issue, in not in integrity issue, in can that woman deliver? Doing business across each country, like I said, is fantastic because the tariffs are lower, the barriers have been let down. Like I said, it's a borderless Africa. How that will be fully understood, it's something that we don't know in the future. Know that knowledge is very important. Celestine talked about technology, talked about e-learning, talked about, Anne Rose talked about technology, talked about women understanding how to use technology in business. So I think a few things that needs to be in place is encouraging education, knowledge, so that as women, we are much more prepared to go out there to do business. I'm not going to use myself as a yardstick because, yes, I'm very tech savvy, business across countries and so on. But I'm talking again generally, the African woman going out there to do business has to be fully equipped. And then, so a lot of things have to come to play. They need to be encouraged. Different areas and are very business savvy. So what I would always say to anybody is, sorry, Dr. Carl, 1 second and I'll let you have your chance because I see you're up. So I'll just quickly just say one more line and I'll let you come on to what you have to say, you know? So, but what I'm going to say, Josiah, is yes, women are ready, but what we're asking is, are these barriers that I have said, it'll be nice for everybody to be mindful of those barriers. Everybody to be mindful. Let me give
so it's
Josiah
not
a chance.
So it's not
say?
because women do not, it's not because women do not know how to do business. It is the barriers that are involved.
Without a doubt, thank you for pointing that. They do know what they want. It doesn't matter if they're micro or they're medium enterprise, at every level, the women know what they want. But the barriers will always be what will draw them back. But if we said it's trading for borderless Africa, for sure, African women are ready to go, yes.
Be careful because they will tell you that do not attack the African culture. You say, if you attack the African culture, we are becoming too modern. So that is a matter we'll speak about. But let me get back to Carl. He's banging on his seat like he's never been before. I know, Gozi, you want to talk about culture, but hold the thought there. You say, Carl, you're here, the silent man in the room, the informal sector, the SMEs and the formal sector. How do we move forward with this when we talk about trade within the entire Africa? Carl, over to you now. Unmute your volume.
I said you cannot. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Now we can.
I just want to be clear that you
hear your voice.
I said sorry for the hiccup of technology. However, I was saying that the AfCFTA is not an animal like you presented it, but however, it is a borderline that is bringing man and machine together, which means that we have to continue to create, we have to continue to be on the top, we have to continue to struggle in order to make humanity relevant. And in this context, Africa the AfCFTA is not a vehicle, it's a tool for us to regain our consciousness in, I would say, the industrial and infrastructural development of Africa. And that being said, it means that a lot of persons, a lot of African people will need to be inclusive in the whole arena. Now, that being said, the informal sector actually has a lot of SMEs and startups in that place. And there are so many of these informal sector that are also moving to the formal sector. So which means that they play a symbiotic role in ensuring that they move. Now, the essence of this AfCFTA, for it to be very, very effective and inclusive enough, is that just as those countries who have ratified, who have submitted their instrument for deposition, have also set up what I call the National Action Committee on the AfCFTA, which means that every signatory country, every ratified country have a mandate to build local capacity, have a mandate to ensure that the informal sector is given priority attention. Is given priority attention in terms of access to financial infrastructure, technology infrastructure, critical infrastructure, and also capacity building, which means that at every point in time, these SMEs or this informal sector will need to be upgraded. The upgrade need to be lively. The upgrade also need to have a human face to this upgrade, because if we are going to be developing, we should understand that humans don't develop, we develop simultaneously, which means every one of us do not develop at the same time. So at the same time, if you look at the dismantling of these barriers, it's not going to be like magic. It's going to be, continuous. It's going to be progressive. It's going to take some time, 5 years, 10 years. But before this time, before Africa cannot be proud of having its own single market, before Africa cannot be proud of controlling its own market, before Africa cannot beat their chest to say we have an equity share in the whole system, the whole matrix of the AfCFTA, there is need for Africa to have a consciousness for capacity building and innovation. And this is where technology, as all the speakers have said, comes in. Infrastructure comes in, because you see, a AfCFTA cannot be possible if infrastructure and industrialization are not key components. Because business of nowadays need the internet to grow, which means they need social media capital to also leverage their businesses, connect their customers, build existing markets to ensure that they are also they are able to be on the grid of relationship between the African corporate, the big corporations, and the local SMEs. We should also ensure that we not just only begin to think of the AfCFTA is not about just a market of Africa, one African country to the other African country. Now, the AfCFTA also include building local capacity that we authenticate the readiness of local SMEs, authenticate the readiness of the startups at national level, so that at least at that national level, they can increase their competency in terms of value addition. They can increase their capacity in the area of quality infrastructure, where we'll not begin to talk about standards. We'll not begin to also talk about quality. They also need to look at what are the ways they can add value to their commodity, to their product. Is it a product? Is it services? We should begin to add this value. And this is where a whole matrix of, of instruments and tools come in, whether it is the tech, whether it is quality, whether it is even local initiative that has to do with governance. Because you see, governance play a huge role in cementing the capacity building of local SMEs to upgrade and upscale to regional trading level, to begin to also upgrade to that level of understanding the concept of the AfCFTA. Why? Because you see, at that level where we are now, the SME and the informal sector are struggling to understand the concept of the AfCFTA. So what we need now is to ensure that we'll not just only give them a basic understanding of the concept, but also give them a basic capacity to also leverage that concept and include it in their value addition in all their services, in all their products, so that at least we cannot have a made in Africa product, we cannot have an African brand that is consumed by Africa, that is bought by Africa, that is worn by Africa, that is even also giving a focused investment, whether of the corporate individuals, whether of the liberalized market sector level, whether at the local level, whether at the government level, there must be a conducive atmosphere where they work together. And all of these will be possible through this joint effort. Thank you very much.
Okay. What a powerful voice that has been. No wonder technology wanted to interfere with that voice, because it knew that this voice speaks, then every corner of this Zoom room is going to be vibrating. But before we get into the next round of questions and interactions, there are a series of insights that people online are providing. And journalists, I'm coming back to you to ensure that there are few voices that you've seen, there are few questions that you've seen people online asking. So could you read one or two of them so that then the panelists, as they take their round, can be able to respond to them? Over to you, Janice.
Thank you, Joseph. I'm trying to read some question. Also, we are doing a live on Facebook, and we have some questions on Facebook Live that I'm bringing in. And it is asked by Alfred, I think from Malawi. He's saying it's on Facebook. He's saying that
yes.
How do the local youth who are in the rural areas can benefit from the AfCFTA in selling their products in other countries?
Okay. Panelists, I hope you're noting that question. So once that question, please take in that question, and you'll be able to answer it. You please go ahead, Eunice.
The other question is, according to His Excellency, the Secretary General, if it can take Europe 70 years for them to get fit into trading within themselves, how many years it will take for Africa to realize trading under the African Continental Free Trade Area? Is it possible by 2063?
And Dr. Hassan, that is your question.
The other one is on the agricultural sector. We know that Africa has agriculture as a top producing sector. How can we integrate agriculture in cross-border trade? I think for now, this is a question that I have. I will collect the others. Thank you.
Okay. There is another question that is where Ngozi was itching to talk about the aspects of culture. And somebody says that we hope we're looking forward to an AfCFTA, that is enabling women-friendly business environment. So then we live in a particular continent. That is what is said. So then the question then becomes to say, are we looking at that treaty that is going to break down that barrier? And Dr. Hassan, I'm bringing you into this conversation with the question that has been asked. You say, how long? And then I want you to chime in that you in your speech, you passionately talked about the youth and women. And over time, on a number of occasions, then the youth become an afterthought. Yet, it is also over in various countries that the youth is the highest population. So how come that this highest population that is a ticking time bomb is usually considered in documents as an afterthought, and there are no active efforts that are being done to ensure that we target the youth and target the women? Dr. San, over to you. Is Dr. Hassan there? Prudence, let me bounce that question to you.
Thank you very much. I think I can answer to two questions that have been raised. One of those being the role of youth, and the other one being the timeline for achieving continental trade. First of all, for the role of youth in rural area who want to engage in continental trade, how can they benefit from the AfCFTA market? My appeal to them is that the AfCFTA market is for Africans. It's for Africans from wherever you are. You don't need to be in the city. Just from wherever you are, what is important is that you focus on what you produce. If you are producing agricultural products, just focus on your production and make sure that your production meet the quality, and then your production will end up on the AfCFTA market. Because now you know you have a market opportunity. So you just have to be efficient in what you are producing and then supply to that market. So it does not matter where you are. What matters is what you are bringing on the market. You can bring skills, okay. You can bring quality products, you can bring anything as long as it is competitive on the market. So someone asked the question that European Union took about 70 years to integrate, and how long is it going to take African continent to achieve AfCFTA, especially the continental trade? The timelines for the AfCFTA are very much clear. First of all, after signing and coming into force of the agreement, it will take between 5 years and 10 years for liberalization of up to 90% of trade. This means that we start trading on the 1st of January 2021. It means that for a number of countries, those who are not least developed countries, after 5 years, in 2025, they will have completed 90% liberalization of their trade. For least developed countries, they will go up to 2030. That's when they expect to liberalize 90%. And then they will also have to add more, up to 97, which will take up to 13 years. So you can now estimate that in 2033, at least we could have a continent which is fully integrated in terms of intra-African trade. I think that one it can be.
So Prudence, if I get you right, so you're saying that it took the European Union about 71 years, but yet you are giving the African continent at most 13 years for some of these laws to be actualized. Is that a wishful thinking? Is it a pipe dream?
No, it's not a dream. It's a reality. The AfCFTA is an outcome of negotiation, and the timelines have also been negotiated. So what I'm saying here is legally binding. So we have started and we will not stop in the process. It will take only 13 years to have fully integrated intra-African trade. And then we will move on to the next level, which is a customs union and a common market. And the timelines are also clear.
Ngozi, the African woman vis-a-vis the patriarchal society, will it allow trade?
Well, as you can, well, I'm listening to what Prudence was saying. It was very interesting. But you know what, like I said, like in and the South African Union agenda says 2063, that, it will be fully, have full gender parity. There'll be the economic and political glass ceiling that has restricted women's progress would have been shattered. So I really hope that that gap will be closed. Again, if I come back to culture, which I'm trying to move myself slightly away, Josiah, so I don't become very political. I'm trying my best. I'm really trying my best. If we go on this, it will be a bit more fierce. So I'm trying to be very, very nice about it. But what I really want to really emphasize is, like I earlier said before, we said, I'm actually the CEO of Commonwealth Business Women, and part of our goal is the SDG 5, you know, and the goal 5, which is gender equality and empowering all women and girls. So this is so very important when it comes to trade and into trade or in AfCFTA. So I just hope, like all Dr. Hussein had said to us, and I listened to His Excellency, all he said, he made it look all so rosy, also wonderful, that they have captured the women, nicely wrapped. He talked about the SME. He talked about the things to gain, what the youths will gain. Wait, the youths include the girls, so just in case we're thinking of only the boys. No, the girls are in the youths. So it talked about, you know, the way it was all presented. So it is my very great wish that those barriers I talked about earlier on are broken down, and that all the promises in AfCFTA will take place, and that the knowledge which sometimes people think that women do not have, it will be respected, that we're very good in tech. If you listen to Anne Rose, she's a fantastic digital woman in that digital space. If you listen to Celestine, fantastic woman in the digital space, because she's doing e-learning, again, all tech, to also let, you know, everybody else understand that the women are very tech savvy, and that we will not be drawn back by, why is this woman flying so high? Why isn't she at home looking after the baby?
On the matter of tech-savvy woman, I'm bringing Celestine to have this conversation, and now not look at it from the perspective of the woman. I wanted to look at the connectivity when it comes to the matter of e-learning, e-commerce, and e-everything. Do we have the capacity and the infrastructure that is going to ensure that Africa adopts the matter of everything?
I'm very glad that after the pandemic, most African governments have started at least digitizing or seeing the relevance of going digital. So I'm very sure most governments at the moment have started embracing digitizing, and also digitization of every systems in probably in trade, in education, and also when it comes to bandwidth, trying to improve the bandwidth issue that we've always been having in Africa. And as you can see, there are so many there's so many opportunities now that telcos are giving out to the masses to be able to get bandwidth that is economical, or at least affordable, so that the people can improve themselves. So also there are policies that have also been started being looked at, and these policies also favor a lot when it comes to gender and the youth, because these are the people who need to access this education, this e-learning platform, the information, so that it puts them at a different level, and it enables them to be able to solve situations within our ecosystems or our communities or our regions, because we realize even with the lockdown, the help had to come from within, not from outside. So even information that had to be shared had to come from within. And there's not been a bigger thing. Before, we used, when we thought of even giving out information, it used to be printing pamphlets. But as you know, pamphlets also have become health risks when it comes to disseminating information. So it's either been doing everything the smart way, or making sure that people get this information from a safety angle. And most governments have enabled their citizens to either become digitized, maybe by giving subsidized even smart gadgets that have enabled people to understand the relevance or the importance of actually going online and embracing e-learning platforms or anything technology, any information that is being given through a smart gadget. I think for me that is an answer that you can also answer. You can also look at and see that governments have been mandated now to pull their shots, especially when it comes to experts who come in and advise how will the masses be able to leverage on information on technology. When you look even at churches that have gone online through Zoom, that has been embraced very widely, even by people who are from an older generation, women from an older generation. And when women have been mandated to understand how Zoom works, I don't think an education platform would be difficult. People are more open and more easy to embrace information, courses, things that will
the private
the next level.
At this point, then I want to bring in Anne on board so that then she can be. Anne, do we have the informal settlement? We do have the private sector in Africa. How do this combine hands with the government so that then this becomes a success? Over to you, Anne.
Thank you very much, Josiah, for that question. And in my mind, I am thinking sometimes back in 2016, there was the Kenya 13 economic update, which was talking about how do we make informal sector formal. So when you're talking about combining or integration of the private sector and the informal settlement, I feel like it's very timely and very relevant because actually 90% of African women 90% of women actually are the women part of the informal sector in Africa. So if they form such a bigger percentage, then we cannot afford to we cannot afford to say they don't exist or deny their existence, including the young people. I feel like there's a big opportunity in the AfCFTA to actualize merge. We can have a scenario where the the private sector is actually coming in to provide the necessary tools that the informal sector needs to not only go formal, but be able to trade in the AfCFTA and actually incorporate the digitalization in the entire process. And here I am looking at a young person maybe in Mwakirunge, in the remotest part of Mombasa, or a young people in Denje, or a young person in, say, whatever remotest place you want to talk about. And this is in connection to the first question of also how young people can, in the rural places, can actually access the AfCFTA or be part of it. So in relation to all that, I am looking at a scenario whereby young people in the informal sector who have their product can be able to be financed by the private sector to actually be able to trade in the AfCFTA using the digital platform like e-commerce. And we are looking at skill development in value chain additions. We are looking at not only the ability of this young person to trade when it comes to skill, but also things such as negotiation. What are these relevant skills that these young people need? I may know how to trade, yes, but I may not know how to negotiate. How do I negotiate for a fair price? If you are talking about, for example, things like what? Things like metallic chair, maybe being exported to a place like Botswana. How do we get a fair market? How do we get a fair price for these young people using the digital platform that are existing? How can the private sector pull in together with the informal sector to actualize this? I know of readily available apps and business platforms that young people are already using, but I feel like we still need more of that, especially in terms of financing and in terms of legislations governing the whole idea of taxes and levies, because that has been the biggest barrier. And I'll give an example of a young person running an M-Pesa in Kenya and how the prices are in terms of the kind of taxes the county and national government are taxing. That is why I was talking about there is the AfCFTA, which Kenya has as a country has ratified and is among the 55 African countries that have ratified this legislation. But there is the internal legislation that hinders actually the youth and young women specifically to participate in this. How best can we then break all these barriers, like how Aunty Ngozi has said? And Aunty Ngozi, thank you so much for reminding everybody that actually the African woman is capable, and we're actually tired of being put on the waiting bay and people telling us that, you know what, women are so underprivileged. Yes, at some extent we are underprivileged, but women have woken up, the African woman has risen. And so on that note, okay. I feel like I'm winding up, Adiema, and this is why I'm saying, as much as you are talking about the integration of the private sector and the informal sector, then here we also need the political commitment from the state actors, which is now the government, to be able to break the internal barriers even before moving now to the AfCFTA. Thank you very much.
Carl, the man with the powerful voice in the corner. The youth do not have a relationship with the SME. Enhanced as we look for this.
Please, can you repeat that question again? Because it seems there is a network issue from your end.
Carl, what I'm saying is this. The SMEs in Africa do not look at the youth as a value item. Never do they also see women as viable for business. How do we change this relationship in 2 minutes, sir? Yes,
the SME, I think maybe perhaps I could also say with all due respect to you, that question is not would not be well placed, because the SME value chain or ecosystem is being run by women and youth. I would say between 70 to 80%. The right question should have been said, what are the policies that are not encouraging these SMEs to actually leverage on the potentials of women and youth, in Africa? In that aspect,
Dr. Carl, if I can cut you, Dr. Carl, I'm cutting you short. You're setting your own.
Oh my God. Shit.
Dr. Carl.
Can you hear me?
Dr. Carl, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Dr. Carl, what I'm telling you, what I'm saying is that you've just set your question and you want to answer your own question. The reason why I'm asking that women and youth are not entirely part and parcel of the SMEs is because when this entity wants to go for loans, when this entity wants to go for funding, then they are told that they do not have the capacity. And that is what I'm seeking in the perspective of, are they going to have a better relationship with the SMEs on this matter, or it's going to be hanky-panky in that sense?
Now that is the question I was expecting, sir. It is not be put right.
That is the question that I asked. Okay. That is the question that I asked you, just reframing it so that then you could answer it in your terms.
Good. Now, you see, the SME in Africa is being operated by young women, by women and youths. Now, what is now needed in the whole matrix is to ensure that
the National Action Committee on the implementation of the AfCFTA at the national level, since the AfCFTA has been ratified, an instrument deposited by member countries. Say right now we have 35 member countries. The last ratified deposited instrument was just Malawi. So what we cannot do at that national level is for the private sector, is for the I would say more of the this is where the civil society comes in. The civil society must continue to amplify the voices of these women SMEs, women startups, women and youth at the informal sector level to be able to gain relevance and capacity that is needed to upgrade the infrastructure tenet of that country. What am I saying? I'm saying basically that women and youth need to be given the requisite capacity, the requisite support, the requisite infrastructure that is needed. And this is where data is available, because we have to work with data. We are not in the first industrial revolution where we are now beginning to talk about paper instruments. We are looking at data, available data. How many SME women, how many women or youth are operating at the SME ecosystem or SME sector level? Is it 1 million? Is it 2 million? Is it 3 million? Even at the national level, how many SME do we have? How many are actually having access to the right enabling infrastructure, such as financial infrastructure, the digital infrastructure, and all kinds of infrastructure? But the AfCFTA now has given a new window of opportunity for women and youth to leverage their capacity, to leverage their unity. And this is where the women and youth needs to, come up alive. They need to also partner in terms of ensuring that whatever they are doing, there's a value addition. There is a mindset change of having to patronize what is produced by women, what is produced by youth, because youth and women have very pertinent innovations, very pertinent creativity that is bringing new products, new services to the arena. And this will swear up the matrix of AfCFTA. In fact, AfCFTA cannot operate if at least 60 to 70% of women and youth are not involved in the whole arena. So it now depends on the government of the day. It depends on private sector. It depends on you and I, who are stakeholders, to ensure that we support women and youth in ensuring that they leverage on the AfCFTA and the AfCFTA support them. Thank you very much.
I like your wittier tempo. I like your wittier tempo of setting your own question and wanting to answer it, but I like how you've come in strong. Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to the end of this conversation. Ngozi, we are coming to the end of this conversation, and we are unwinding out our tent. And when we are winding out our tent, Ngozi, I am coming to you so that you can be able to give your parting shot on the matter. Okay. Your parting shot. So
one-liner to what Dr. Carl just said.
Yes. Please wind up in 1 minute.
Just a only submission to it is saying that financial services across reduce the barrier, by reducing the barriers, for cross-border, financial services can reduce all their requirements. I think this would just alleviate the gap. If the financial services expected of women and children, if they take that into consideration, yes. Women and youth is taken into consideration. If the items are 1 million, when you come to the women and the youths, I think because it's a new market for everybody or for some of the women and youths, they should just reduce. If it's 1 million items needed, they reduce it to about 10. It would cover the gap in that area. I don't know if it makes sense.
And that is that challenge with the SMEs is what I was asking Dr. Carl before he set up his own question and tried to run away with it. But Ngozi, I want you to unwind this conversation from your end so that then we can say that we live to talk about this another day, but for today, time is not with us. Ngozi, in 1 minute, please kindly wind up the conversation from your end.
It's been a brilliant conversation today, and I'm very grateful that we all had the opportunity to listen to His Excellency Mene, and also listen to Dr. Hussein Hassan, and also a pleasure to have everybody. Josiah, thank you very much. You're a fantastic moderator. I thank the Nile Youth Development that has put this together, and of course my fellow panelists. We've been great, we must say. But the takeaway for us today, and talking from the women's side, is we're very happy AfCFTA is in place. It's such a beautiful thing. We're happy that the custom union and the trade barriers, all the tariffs and all the promises that have been made to us, we've listened to it, and we really sincerely look forward to a beautiful borderless Africa trade. Intra-trade, inter-trade. We're very grateful. We look forward to a beautiful business union amongst the all ratified African countries that have signed up for AfCFTA.
Borderless Africa, that is what we are aiming at. Prudence, we come to you so that then you can wind up this tent from your answer.
Yes, thank you very much also for this opportunity. And let me thank all panelists for brilliant ideas that you have brought on board. And we are now clear in our mind that this AfCFTA market is for women and youth. And I want to emphasize the fact that technology is an integral part of the movement of goods and services. So we have now shifted from the era of using muscles power, mechanical power. We are today using our brain. So the youth should take advantage of this fact and embrace the AfCFTA market. You just need the brain, you need critical thinking, you need collaboration and creativity, and then you are in the market. Thank you very much.
Are you going to be the whining youth, or are you going to be the youth that seizes the opportunity? That is Dr. Prudence for you. I just put it apt and clear. Over to you, the youth. The challenge is yours. Dr. Carl, please kindly unpitch your tent, sir.
First, I would say I want to thank everybody for this session, with particular reference to you, Josiah. You have done a fantastic moderation here. However, I would say that to be successful in all of these, women and youth must continue to be innovative and creative. They must support themselves. We should have the mindset of buy Africa, build Africa to empower African SMEs, which means the ecosystem will swear if there is a collaboration. And like Prudence said, technology plays a very pertinent role, which is also an ample component of industrialization and infrastructure, all of which accelerated the AfCFTA. That being said, I think that Africa, I am very confident that Africa will move if we have that commitment, that mindset shaping, that Africa is ours. We have a role to play in remodeling Africa and rebranding the continent and its people. Thank you very much.
With the commitment, we are looking at a remodeled Africa. That is Dr. Carl for you. Prudence. No, not Prudence. I say Celestine. Celestine, from your E level, please kindly unwind your tent. Celestine is around?
We don't see her online.
If Celestine is not around, please, Anne, from your Uzalendo corner, please kindly unpitch your tent.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much from my Uzalendo corner. And it's actually where we are saying Africa is our continent and nobody's gonna fix it. so we will fix Africa as the youth of Africa. And while AfCFTA is looking promising and it's looking at creating employment opportunities for which will actually cap the issue of the youth bulge that we are having by having more labor inclusive trade. But also, it's also my urge to the youth to also seek more information on AfCFTA, as much as we are calling in the partners from both state and non-state actors to actually make this possible for us. We cannot fold our arms pretty and wait for that. We have to seek for spaces where we can actually have this conversation. If there are young people in all the African region who understand this issue well, how best do we use technology? Like today, Uzalendo Africa partnered with the Nile Youth Hub and the Model African Union to have this conversation. How many more conversations like this can young people across border, across IGAD region, across the sub-Saharan Africa be able to have before we can actually wait for our governments or for the member state to, or for the African Union to actually convene us? It is more about using availability of local resources, and by resources here I mean young people with skills and knowledge about this, and also how best can we collaborate with other partners partners irrespective of which sector they are coming from. Then we can have this conversation trickle down, because I believe those of you who attended here, I checked the list of the attendees and almost 40 plus are ambassadors in their own constituents who they represent. Please go and share this knowledge out there. And I want to thank you, Adiema, for being such a good moderator. And thank you so much also to Auntie Ngozi and for our powerful, apologetic Pan-Africanist, she just made my Pan-Africanism spirit get so high. And also to say that Uzalendo Africa and also the Nile Youth Hub and the Model African Union will also be having more series of this conversation. But I know Engineer John Magok is going to talk about that. But from Uzalendo's end, we will be having the next conversation on women, specifically women and the role that women play in the AfCFTA. And so, Dr. Ngozi, you asked this in the beginning, and this will be an opportunity for us women. Here in Kenya, they're calling us the other gender to actually talk about what opportunities are there in the AfCFTA. Thank you so much.
I am sure she's dancing in some corner somewhere at the mention of women's only
I'm just so proud of the women with arrows, tech, and then all of them tech. It just makes my heart beat. Boom, 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 boom. Joe, you don't understand being a woman and being out there very equipped, ready.
I told you she's something else when it comes to matters women. But ladies and gentlemen, we are winding this, and on the matter of how do we spiral this conversation, that is unrose for you. And I am asking if Dr. Hussein Hassan, are you back into this conversation so that then you can be able to unwind your tent?
Yes, of course. Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice to have you here.
At the end of the session, I was just to give really some conclusions that really or comment on this very successful and really rich session. Came into the main really enablers of success of CFTA by youth. Many really main pillars has been really recommended or indicated, such as the innovation, infrastructure, and the institutions, and the really job creation, SMEs. I would like to also add the capacity building of our youth, really, to have a really see this is a very good investment, really. As much as we really invest in our human, it will have a really higher return at the end of the day. So also I want to stress on the facts that the youth and women in a common pillar in all AUC continental strategies adopted by heads of states. It is in Abuja Treaty, it is in Agenda 2063, it all but SMEs strategy, accelerating industrial development for Africa, African mining vision, CADB, youth as a common factor and one of the main target or destination of the beneficial of the work. So there is no question on that. And really, we appreciate the pioneers or the entrepreneurship of associations of youth across our continents. So I give a really special thanks to John and yourself as a very good moderator and all colleagues who had really contributed perfectly to our session. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been an interesting conversation. It's been really awesome having you all around. This has been none other than Josiah Adiema. I've been your captain through this journey for the last 2 hours. And as I unpitch my tent, I believe that it's time for us to keep our African story and tell it and shape it so that the future generation that is coming on can be proud of us and speak of us in high spirits and say that there once stood a people that hosted our flag as Africa and ensured that we were at the apex of development. Thank you so much. And I hand back this over to Nile Development, say Youth Development, for the fantastic job. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the time. And thank you for bringing all these brilliant minds together. Over to you, Johannes.
Thank you very much, our captain. And I would like to appreciate and pass my gratitude to His Excellency, Wamkele Mani, for giving us this opening session, where all the discussion is under his remarks. Thanks also to Mr. Hussein Hassan, who also gave us an incredible remark on how we can drive this agenda of AfCFTA, and also our panelists who give us a great insight and new perspective on how we can drive this agenda as young people of the continent and young women across the continent. Thank you to Madame Ngozi, to Mr. Prudence, to Anna Rose, to Dr. Carl Oshede. Thank you to Class 10. This is really a great 2 hours. We intended to have this conversation as an initial conversation of series of consultation that we'll have regionally. And it's great that we reach 500 young people on live on Facebook, because this is where young people are concentrated. This is where they do their businesses. And we have 500 participants in that end. And we have also a good number on the Zoom participation. The way forward is, from here, we are going to initiate the regional consultation where we target the regional economic blocks. We go specifically to region and we see their priorities and how youth perceive the idea of having this central market, the African Continental Free Trade Area. And we will use your inputs and your perspective in leading this domestication process. And it is good that we had a great guidelines on how we can bring youth involved on board, and how can we bring young women who are in the informal sector also to be part of this journey. It is our journey, and being it a part of the African Union Agenda 23 flagship program, that it means from now we have 30 plus years, and those years, they are years that can be utilized by the young people to be creative enough to come up with innovation that can drive the achievement of Agenda 23, the Africa we all want, integrated by trade. Thank you very much, and thank you to our partners, the New Zealand Initiative, and also Model Africa Union Ethiopia and Oxfam Pan Africa, for bringing all this together and initiating the program. It is the first, it will not be the end. We will continue reaching out to our leaders. And at the end of this consultation process, we will have a final report that we will submit to the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area, and we'll give a copies to regional blocks. All the regional economic blocks will have also a copy of our reports. Thank you very much. I appreciate this session. Stay blessed and have a good day. Thank you very much. And thank you to our Captain Josiah Adiem. You were great, very great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you,
much, Joseph, thank you.
You were awesome.
Brodens.
John, can we take a photo?
Annie, Sankar, thank you
Okay.
everyone.
Yes, we can take a photo. We can take a group
Yes.
photo. Just put on your
Yes,
camera,
please.
smile.
Let's take a virtual group photo.
Ngozi, go away.
No, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere.
Yay.
You need me more than ever.
Okay, so look at the camera, smile, and then we can be able to snipe it.
Great.
No, I didn't smile.
Okay.
No, I didn't smile.
Smile away, smile away.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, team. Thank you so much.
Done.
That was a great conversation, guys. Thank you so much.
It was. Thank you. So everybody stay blessed.
Bye, Auntie Ngozi.
Bye, darling.